Hi, welcome to In Sync, the podcast that explores the history and impact of some of your favorite music moments in TV and film. I'm your host, Rachel Brodsky.
And I'm like totally bugging.
The 1995 comedy juggernaut Clueless is widely considered to be one of the best teen films of all time, and rightly so. Between its shiny, happy Beverly Hills setting, hyper-contemporary slang and fashion, surprisingly genre-diverse soundtrack, and the bubbly cast chemistry, Clueless is both a glossy snapshot of mid-90s pop culture and an endlessly quotable, somehow still relevant classic that never goes out of style.
Featuring a smart, snappy soundtrack, Clueless features tracks from The Muffs, The Mighty Mighty Bosstones, Counting Crows, Luscious Jackson, Coolio, Beastie Boys, Radiohead, and Jill Sobule, whose Supermodel is our needle drop of the week.
Here to help us unpack this music moment, which soundtracks a makeover for Brittany Murphy, R.I.P.'s Ty, is comedian and writer Lane Moore.
How did Supermodel end up in Clueless? How did both the song and the movie subvert the high school experience and makeover scenes in movies? And how does Jill Sobule feel about the song's placement nearly 30 years later?
All this and more on the latest episode of In Sync.
That was way harsh, Ty.
Welcome to the podcast. We're such big fans of yours, and also, though, I feel like we go way back, so it's also strange to say we're such big fans of yours because I'm just like, we're just hanging out with Lane.
Hanging out with Lane.
No, it's so nice to be here and to talk about. I'm such a Brittany Murphy obsessive, like really obsessive. Like I'm one of those people, I feel like this is a lot of us, but I'm one of those people who's just like, we need to investigate her death. Like I'm like a hardcore, like this isn't right. This is fundamentally like a huge
Britney
loss
truther.
to the culture and the world. Like this person is, it's the same way I am with Selena. I'm like, this matters deeply to me. I will want answers till the day I die. Like I will always care about this, maybe a little too much. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Me too, because like just every now and then I'm scrolling through TikTok and it like an old but it feels new to me video of Brittany Murphy like from MTV shopping like for CDs or renting a video and like telling MTV what video she's renting, and she's just so cute and charming. It like hurts all over again. So I'm right there.
So adorably clueless.
Or did she know too much? I don't know.
Sure.
I just like, you know what I mean? Like as a person, like I just look back and I'm like, oh, I don't know, whatever. I don't want to get too deep into Brittany Murphy lore too ahead of the time, but it's just like, there's so much there. She was this like, and I use this word with so much like this isn't real at all, quote unquote chubby, AKA she had like a remotely normal body, girl from New Jersey who like liked to eat a meal at all and went to Hollywood, and it was like this whole thing. And so it's interesting because I feel like Clueless kind of mirrors reality here a little bit, where it was like she couldn't fit in with those kids. So I feel like
there's definitely something there. And there's also like the timing of her death like lines up a little bit with Amy Winehouse, which has like a similar narrative of like someone who was like too pure for the industry that she was in and couldn't really mesh her own personal personality, personal demons with like the industry that's like meant to chew you up and spit you out. Spoilers, we're going to talk a lot about how manipulative the industry is in this episode.
Fun.
But first, a little background on Clueless if you are one of the 8 people in the world who hasn't seen it. Clueless follows Cher Horowitz, played by Alicia Silverstone, as a 16-year-old virgin who can't drive, but who nevertheless is one of the popular girls at her high school in Beverly Hills. Because high school boys are not worth her time, Cher and her best friend Dion, played by Stacey Dash, author of There Goes My Social Life, From Clueless to Conservative.
That is a good title, though. I mean, it's terrible subject matter.
Honestly, good job. I didn't know that's what it was called. She's right.
Poor Stacey Dash, decide that their time is better spent helping out other people with their love life. At first, they set up 2 of their teachers, Miss Geist and Mr. Hall. Selfishly, they think that getting Mr. Hall laid will earn them better grades. When this works so well that I'm thinking they might get a visit from the accreditation board, Cher and Dion turn their attention to Ty, the adorably clueless transfer student, played by the late, great Brittany Murphy. After Ty, who demonstrates that she's a little bit more experienced than Cher and Dion can even pick up on, develops a crush on Elton, played by the perennially creepy-eyed Jeremy Sisto, Cher and Dion give Ty a makeover to the Jill Sobule song, Supermodel.
I'm gonna be a supermodel, and everyone is gonna dress like me. Wait and see when I'm a supermodel, and my hair will shine like the sea. And everyone will wanna look just like me. 'Cause I'm young.
So I have done some research on kind of the history of the makeover montage, which we can talk about a little later in the
I
show.
love
But I
that.
really want to unpack this scene and why this song is perfect for this scene.
Well, Lane, as our guest,
Yeah,
I know.
please.
I'm like,
no pressure.
so correct me if I'm wrong, Jill Sobule is gay, right?
I don't think she is. I think she
No,
just sang a song about kissing a girl,
she
and then it was
did right.
and then it was
She's not queer
confused.
at all?
I don't think she's queer. Hang on,
Now I've got
just for
a
safety.
I feel like she has to be at least
Editor.
bi. That's such a gay iconic gay song. That was like words working.
she identifies as bisexual.
I knew it. We can smell our own. Well, because what I was gonna say was that song has such an innate queerness and weirdness to it that for me, I think like she has such a uniqueness to her voice that I feel like artists like her don't usually get to hit the mainstream. Like they definitely had a bit more of an entry point in the 90s, but we don't see that much anymore. So there's something really fun and kind of subversive about that song when it comes on that like if it was anything else, if it was, you know, a Britney Spears song, I love her, but it would not have hit the same way.
So, Lane, you're referencing Jill Sobule's "I Kissed a Girl," which is not the Katy Perry "I Kissed a Girl," which is just queer baiting. So, like our Meredith Brooks "Bitch" episode, I had to be like, "Who sings that song?" And it is Jill Sobule, not Lisa Loeb, not whoever else you might be thinking. And so that song also came out in 1995.
They can have their diamonds and we'll have our pearls. I kissed a girl for the first time. I kissed a girl.
And so she has two massive hits that are very different sounding in the same year.
Yeah.
Can I say I have a weird memory of being in school, like maybe junior high or high school, and like our teacher played us the song "I Kissed a Girl" by Jill
Really?
Sobule. Yeah, I don't remember.
Why?
Was she like, be gay, it's cool?
We
I don't
found the
remember-
one
I
teacher
don't
that's
even
like trying to turn the kids gay.
I know. I wish I'd had her. I was right on the cusp.
I did go to like a really, really progressive public school. Like I'm
very
realizing this in hindsight. Although I don't remember if
That's progressive for now, let alone.
yeah, it's progressive for now. It's kind of like going back and watching old episodes of Beverly Hills 90210 and being like, wow, this is way more progressive than I feel like it should have been, given how much time has gone by.
Well,
But then
we've
you
been very
think about-
regressive in the last 25 years.
Yeah, yes. And then you think about how much we've regressed and progressed, but really a lot of regression in the last 25 years. Yeah. But I mean, I don't remember the context or why, but when the Katy Perry song came out, I remember like, doesn't that already exist? I know I've heard that song because it was before Spotify where I could just like go and Google it or whatever, look it up and listen to it on command. But I have this memory of being in school and like listening to "I Kissed a Girl," not for any particular reason other than like, this is a good song.
It's a great song. And without a doubt, the superior "I Kissed a Girl" can't even hold a candle to it for so many reasons, like even just as a song. But anyway, you know, yeah, I'm not a Katy Perry "I Kissed a Girl." No.
Well, I mean, I like, we're not here to denigrate anybody's art, but like, if you look at like what the narrative, when the point of view of each song is, it's like very clear that the Katy Perry "I Kissed a Girl" is like, oh, look at me, I'm so sexy, and I did this thing
It's just
for male attention.
College drunken party.
Right, and that's why it's like I feel like I like to think that even now, even in 2024, Katy Perry would be like, that wasn't great. Because it's like, and that's why, like,
Maybe.
I'm not really one to like openly shit on somebody's work, but I think that one felt really personal as a queer kid who like had this song that was called the same thing and was from a queer artist through a queer lens, and to totally remove it and be this like really male gazy, like, I'm not gay though. I'm not like one of those gays.
I
Like
hope my
kind of
boyfriend doesn't mind it.
right. No, like I have
Yeah.
no problem saying not a no, no, a huge no, because it's one that just like, and it ages like milk. Like as time goes on, you're just like, that song really sucked for so many reasons, you know? Just as all those reasons. It's like that was your foray? All right.
The Jill song sounds like this like queer euphoria moment of like, you know,
Yeah.
like this really excited journal entry of like, I got to be my authentic self for the first time. And I will mildly defend Katy Perry kind of a little bit, which is that, you know, it's not huge secret that she started out as like a Christian musician, and
Yeah.
so her like foray into this like queer baiting thing was like her taking her power back from like the weird Christian
Okay,
sect that
so
she
maybe
grew
she
up in.
went careening into the
Maybe,
other
But
direction. But
still
with
in this really male gazy, I don't
yeah,
really,
for
I don't
sure.
see it as a powerful song at
the
all.
pendulum swung too far.
It swung too far because then you have this like, it kind of invalidates queer identities. Like, I don't know. You will never convince me that that's like a good song, because it's that whole like, oh, I'm gay so that boys like it, but I'm not like
Yeah,
letting
right.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
It has a rage to it. There's like a homophobia within that song.
Mm-hmm.
You can like feel.
Yeah, and there are plenty of other reasons that this song aged like milk. One of which is that its producer, Dr. Luke. So
There, and there's another reason. That's why I'm just like, we could like, that song is dripping with reasons to not love it, but especially when you put it, you know, pitted it up against Jill's song, which was so great. And the other thing about the Supermodel song too is that when you listen to it, like you listen to the full thing, it's so subversive and it's so campy. Like that's the other thing, the like thing that's great about it. Like there's literally a line in that song that's like, she does like a spoken word part where she's like, I didn't eat today and I didn't eat yesterday and I'm not going to eat tomorrow because I'm going to be a supermodel. And it's like, no one was really talking about that. There was still this idea that like supermodels ate just like you. They just looked different. And it's like,
yeah, it's just gene. I'm
no.
just lucky. Rachel, do you want to talk a little bit about that spoken word part?
Yeah, so that spoken word part was actually the only entry lyrically of Jill Sobule. So the song was written by two Davids, David Bierwald, David Kate, Brian McLeod, and Kristen Vigard. It was intended to sound especially teenage. At one of the Davids, David Bierwald, he has talked before about how he like lifted lines from a letters to the editor in Sassy magazine, R.I.P. Sassy, and R.I.P. Jane magazine, two publications too good for this world. But Sobule added her own spoken word part, and then there was like a whole mess, a whole legal mess about whether or not she should be credited as a songwriter on the song.
Which
We
she should
can
have
get
been.
into that a little bit further down, but yeah, Sobule's I didn't eat yesterday, I'm not going to eat today, I'm not going to eat tomorrow. It referenced her own past struggles with an eating disorder, so that was her being very personal in the moment.
I'm literally so aghast that it was
Yeah.
such a like heavy co-write. I'm really
Mm-hmm.
surprised. But you know what? Like she brought so much of herself to it. Like you could have given this to like any other pop star at the time and it would not have hit the same.
Yeah, ultimately she did not end up receiving a writing credit. And
Boo.
she said about that, I wish that I would have been more proactive and talked to the writers directly. I felt so overwhelmed at the time and remember thinking, well, they must know better. I didn't want to be trouble. So
Oh, Jill.
That's
Yeah.
such a thing. That's such a thing.
but she left her stamp.
You hit the nail on the head, Lane, that like Jill's point of view is this kind of undercutting of if it were a different pop star, it would be taken almost literally. And in this version, she has this like tongue in cheek, especially with the addition of that spoken word part, this tongue in cheek, like, aren't I great? It's like the Sydney Sweeney from Euphoria. I've never been happier, with her eyes full of tears. Me.
Yeah, and it's also just like you can hear. I think the other thing to me that always stands out is like something about her performance is like she knows she's never ever going to be that no matter what she does.
Mm-hmm.
You can hear that in the song, and I think that's what makes it so relatable, and that really gives it that kind of pathos, because it's like this sort of somebody who's such an outsider, they're never going to fit in, but they still really want to, and they know they're not gonna, and it's like probably fine. There's like I hear all those layers when I hear it.
I think that has a lot to do with the arrangement too, because the Supermodel is like this kind of rock forward, punk forward song, which sounds very different to I Kissed a Girl. And that, I think, exposes the kind of the chasm between what she's saying, what she's singing, versus like the actual life of a supermodel, right? Is like, if this was kind of a twinkly piano driven song, it would not have the same like bite or anger or subversion to it.
Do you think that in the scene itself, that it's being that Supermodel is, because I mean, I view the song as being kind of a push pull, a creative push pull between its writers, like the first 3 or 4 writers I mentioned, and Sebule herself, and ultimately the movie's music supervisor, Karen Rackman.
I think you're right, and I think that there is like a history of interesting placements of like earnest songs that in placements become satirical. I'm thinking of like there's a scene in Face Off where Nicolas Cage like shoots up a whole den of bad guys, and you're listening to like Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and so that's like an earnest song used in context to create the satire. And I think you're right, there is a push pull, but I ultimately come down on the side that the film and that the music supervisor have it right, and that this song and the scene are not necessarily supposed to be taken on face value, that like being made over and being a supermodel is like super great.
Yeah.
The line that really does it for me is the way she says wait and see. And I don't know why. It's not a particularly like angry delivery, but just like the way it comes in the song, everyone will want to dress like me, wait and see. I'm like, oh no, you're in on the joke.
Right. I think that's what I think that's part of what I mean too, where it's like she knows she's not going to be that. She doesn't really want to be in it. That's part of that's being in on the joke, where it's like, I want to be this. This would be cool. It's never going to happen, and I don't even know if I want it to happen, but it'd be fun to imagine it. I think that's really what it is.
Yeah, she told Refinery 29 that like she was like, I would have been the weird goth girl. So I think that she's kind of like she's writing it from that perspective. Right. Interestingly, she was 34 at the time when she contributed her part and performed.
Hell yeah.
I was just going to say that. So I keep looking down because I was curious. And so I was like looking up some of the songwriting facts. And I think that was the next thing I was going to bring up. Because what it reminds me of too, I think it's cool that she was in her 30s for this. Because what it also reminds me of, now that I think about it, is Liz Phair's Why Can't I? Where it's like kind of this adult woman mimicking the feelings of a teenager, because you can be any age and have those. And like, I remember people really were so angry, like critics were so angry at Liz Phair for writing this song, even though like men are allowed to write about way more infantile feelings.
Stolen valor for teenage girls.
The same. I mean, first of all, Why Can't I? Perfect song, perfect pop song.
Great song.
I love that song.
People were like, ugh.
But I feel like
she have a crush after the age of 16.
No, you're so right, and I feel like that exact energy that pushes back against adult women having feelings about their feelings that you might typically associate with your teenage years, like that connects to. Like every now and then I'll see some tweets about like a friend in my 30s loving something that Olivia Rodrigo did and just like almost apologizing for it.
I love everything that Olivia Rodrigo does.
And like
apologizing
almost
for anything.
having to like, I don't know, position herself in like a certain way. Like, I know this is weird because I'm in my 30s, but I don't know, like there's like a tension around women our age, if I can speak broadly, in like loving songs written by like a late teen, early 20 something, and because it like brings back those feelings that never actually go away.
And as the like resident dude on this episode, it is like when men grow up, their infantile behavior is still rewarded, right? That's why we have all these superhero movies, comic book movies, video games, all this stuff that like, while I think that these things can be quote unquote actual art, they started out as child's entertainment, and as men grew up into these halls of power, they got to like remake the childish things in their to fit their adulthood, and like we still kind of pish posh women. Like no one is more derided in pop culture than like teenage girls.
Well, and it's, you think about, that's like the whole man boy thing, but like no one wants to be a woman girl or whatever version of man boy that would be, partly because of the way it sounds.
I want to be a woman girl.
Yeah,
I am a woman girl.
Yeah,
not a girl, not yet a woman.
But it's like, but it's that kind of thing where it's like we're supposed to think these things are adorable in men, like, oh my god, he's like in his 40s but he's playing with like toys and he loves action figures, and it's like there certainly are people who critique that, but you don't hear men who are like ashamed to talk about it, or who are like, I know this is
No, they brag about it. They're like, guess what I just bought on eBay.
Right. They're like, oh, I love it, I've just bought more video games that 13-year-olds play. But like,
and the answer, by the way, is
feel weird about it. Why?
The answer, by the way, is not to make more people feel weird about it. The answer is to like make it okay for everyone to do. Like just like let people live and
shame,
enjoy things.
No guilt.
And equally cool and silly.
Mm-hmm.
Like it shouldn't be cooler to do this, or like it's like less cool for women, but I guess we'll allow it. Like that's not really equality.
A little bit more about Clueless. Clueless is one of those classic comedies that gets even more classic when you know all the elements that went into creating it. It basically is genre defining for someone my age. I'm 38. Amy Heckerling, the director of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, National Lampoon's European Vacation, and the first two Look Who's Talking movies, was in talks with Fox to make a TV series. Fast Times, which was penned by Cameron Crowe, was extremely culturally relevant, and it gave us its own seminal on-screen needle drops. So Heckerling was Fox's choice to like capture lightning in a bottle a second time. Amy Heckerling said that 20th Century Fox, quote, wanted a show about teenagers, but not nerds. They wanted it to be about the cool kids. How bold, Fox. How brave.
Right. For once, we've given the nerd too much attention. Talk about the hots. Yeah.
So this is Amy's quote. So I thought I'm going to write a character who's positive and happy, because she was looking back on her character of Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, who is positive but not happy, or happy but not positive. And so there was Cher Horowitz. She said that she read Jane Austen's novel Emma in college, and loving the title character's positivity, decided to write a script around an Emma-like character, saying, I started to think, what's the larger context for this kind of nothing can go wrong, always looking through rose-colored glasses kind of girl? So I tried to take all the things that were in this sort of pretty 1800s world and see what that would be like if it was in Beverly Hills. And famously, for research on the script, she sat in on classes at Beverly Hills High School to get a feeling for the students. And she said, quote, one thing I observed was these girls in a constant state of grooming. So we're having a huge cultural conversation about grooming, but I think this quote, she's referring to like literal grooming, like a cat. Like these girls are constantly like preening in the mirror and grooming themselves. So the finished script was originally called No Worries, and it contained all the main characters that would end up in the Clueless film. But Fox didn't get it. One of Heckerling's friends named Twink Kaplan said it was
Great
obvious,
name.
right? It was obvious they didn't get it. They thought that the script needed more boys in it. They were afraid that if it focused on girls, we wouldn't get any guys to see it.
Right.
So it went
about
into
popular boys.
popular and boys.
Yeah. Oh God. That's like I never want to see that. Just
And
about
so-
popular boys. That's a dark level.
So
Oh.
Just becomes Euphoria.
it went into this thing called turnaround, which is essentially where Fox is like sitting on it until the rights lapse, and basically it's like dead. But 6 months later, the script found its way to producer Scott Rudin, who, despite being a famous Hollywood monster, gave it his stamp of approval. And Rudin's support led to a bidding war between studios, and Paramount Pictures eventually won. Paramount owns, Viacom owns MTV, but I believe it was like a MTV Paramount co-production. But fun fact, the movie Clueless was shot by Bill Pope, who shot all the Matrix movies.
That's called Range.
That's called Range. He shot Army of Darkness in 1992, and then Fast Times in 95, and then all the Matrix movies. But he's like one of the great cinematographers working. He's still working. Much like Fast Times, Clueless defined a generation and gave young millennials, before they were called millennials, a bevy of slang to incorporate into their lives. So, Lane, Rachel, now's the time to admit it. Did you do Clueless slang as like a young adolescent?
I'm sure that I said as if once or twice.
Or like loser, like one of these.
I don't think I ever. Well, no, I didn't really do like the loser hand because I was not in the position to be giving. I
To be calling
like,
people losers.
I was like I was not popular, and I was also not like at the very bottom, but I was like definitely not cool enough in any sense that I would be giving like a loser hand to someone else.
Yeah.
I usually
Lane,
befriended.
I could tell
the
you were a
losers.
bully. I can tell.
No.
You're kidding, right?
I am kidding. Yes.
Oh, okay. I was like, I don't think I've ever seen somebody read me so wrong. But you never know. Because you have people like Tina Fey, and like she's like, I was a bully. And it's like,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've never been read that way. I was really like worried for a second. That just shows you I'm a little out of it, that I'm like susceptible enough. It's like to very clear sarcasm. But yeah, I never used any of that. I never used any of it. Maybe I just thought that since I wasn't in Beverly Hills, it was,
Sure.
Yeah, it was kind of like slang turned all the way up to 11, which probably
it was
wasn't
so
like real
yeah,
life.
I don't know that was anybody actually
yeah.
like in
I saw some kids like do the whatever sign with their
Oh, yeah.
hands or
Whatever.
like whatever. I mean, so like these all the slang is so just like jam packed into 1 hour and a half experience, and in real life, I heard it like cherry picked here and there. But I was also like 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I have to think that this popularized whatever in a way that we still are using it today. Like I can't think
But
of
there was
something.
a way they said it though that nobody says it like
Right.
that. Maybe we should bring it back where it's like whatever. That's
Yeah.
not how anyone ever says it.
maybe they were in California.
Sure. And the film Valley Girl from the 80s is pointed to as the thing that gave us like popularized the Valley Girl accent. But I
Yeah.
think that this like really wove it into our culture in a way that, you know, I missed with Valley Girl because I was a little too young. This was like the booster shot that
I never
really
saw
made
Valley Girl. Is Valley Girl really good?
it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
It's not Clueless.
It's on my list.
But I don't know about other people, but for me, the most alluring thing was not the slang. It was the clothes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That's
totally.
what I wanted. I didn't want to use I don't know. Well, I don't know if I wanted to use the words or whatever, but I just wanted the fucking clothes, man.
Oh, yeah.
I
And
wanted
the
makeover.
closet. And the closet.
Right. I wanted
Yeah.
somebody to give me that makeover and give me not necessarily those clothes because she doesn't have my favorite outfits of the, you know, she's got good ones, but it's like you watch that movie and it's like hers isn't the main closet that you want, you know?
Whose closet did you want from that movie?
I mean, Cher's closet. And then, you know, really in many ways, there was like a yin yang kind of happening with Dion's closet too, where it was
Mhm.
just like different shades, different colors, you know? So really theirs. And, because I think there was something, it depended what it was. There were some of Brittany Murphy's outfits that were cute, but some of them were a little too preppy somehow, and I didn't like them.
What's up, Daddy?
What the hell is that?
A dress.
Says who?
Calvin Klein.
It looks like underwear. Go upstairs and put something over it.
Duh, I was just going to.
Yeah, I felt like hers kind of like went a bit girlish at times, like
Yeah.
young girlish. Like there's this one scene where she's wearing, I think it's the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones scene when
Yeah,
they're all
right.
at the show with seeing
Where Josh
band.
is jumping up and down.
Yeah, and Brittany Murphy can't figure out how to wear her like
Oh, yes.
her like button down top with her overalls, and I wore overalls as a kid, but I since developing, I hated overalls after that, and I still don't know how to wear overalls even though I have worn them here and there. I just feel like a little baby when I'm
So
like,
I think that this is totally intentional, though. Like,
Mhm.
obviously, like the
Yeah.
costumes are curated
Mhm.
and have been called back to in pop culture since then. Ariana Grande did a video. Was it Ariana Grande or Iggy Azalea or someone did a
it was
video?
Iggy-
it was
Iggy
Iggy
Azalea.
Azalea and Charlie
Yeah.
XCX in
Like,
2015.
I remember that moment.
I was there.
And there was like a fashion
Yeah.
line in 2018 that like called back to Clueless. But I want you to hold on to this like tie being infantilized thing,
Mhm.
because I think
Yeah.
that is like that perfectly leads me into like my next thing that I wanted to discuss. By the way, Valley Girl was directed by Martha Coolidge, who also directed Material Girls with Brittany Murphy.
Oh, which I also haven't seen.
Oh, it's good. Brittany Murphy, Dakota Fanning.
It's
I ha-
good.
Yeah,
It's
I
good.
have seen it.
She's in a couple of those movies and
Yeah.
it's like so tempting to watch her, but you're not. And whatever, we'll move on. But there's some movies like that where it's like you're not getting Brittany Murphy realness.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You're getting this
Yeah.
like version of her she felt like she had to be by Hollywood. And I remember even as
Yeah.
a kid being like, that's not what I want. I want
Yeah.
weird you.
Yeah, it
Like I
didn't.
want everything you are that they won't let you be.
Our generation has always been really good at figuring like trying to being able to see through artifice in a way that like maybe was taught to us by Generation X. But this brings me to the history of the makeover montage.
Mm.
There's this book called Before and After: The Makeover in Film and Culture by Angela Claire Dance. This was actually her like doctoral thesis at The Ohio State University. In the book, Dance traces the history and lineage of the makeover in pop culture, exploring not just film works, but television, like reality television and magazines, the latter of which was used primarily to sell cosmetics. So to boil this whole book down to a quick blurb is tough, but here's the quick history. According to Vincent Vinakis, the new acceptance of cosmetic use in the 1920s was due to a crisis of gender politics. So cosmetics were a means of emphasizing the sexual difference in women and men in a time of anxiety surrounding women's changing roles in society. This is what he argues, quote, "The widespread reintroduction and acceptance of cosmetics in the first decades of the 20th century was a noticeable revision in the schedule for the depiction of the female. This innovation can be interpreted as a ritual of feminization, and the timing of its appearance reveals its meaning." So plenty of other authors have, including Dance, also argue that this codification of feminine beauty standards was also used to hold up like the white beauty standards in the Black community, and at times rob Black women of their culture to homogenize the look of all women in line with the ideal white woman. And this becomes important in Clueless as we look at the character of Dion, who is like completely like falls completely into the white beauty standard that Cher like is the model for, and like weirdly mirrors Stacey Dash's like real person arc, where she's like a Fox News contributor. She's like completely been red pilled by
Oh, sure. So
the American
she's
Had a
right.
sort of
makeover
like
of sorts.
yeah. Okay, but no,
Outside
I
in-
see. That's
Yeah.
it's a really interesting reading of it, and I'm gonna think about that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it was like
it.
Clueless's fault, but this
Mhm.
is like part of her trajectory. And we can use this to dissect Ty's makeover in the larger story of Clueless. So, okay, let's fast forward. The beauty industry codified what's attractive to women. Now pop culture can reinforce that. We get movies like Pygmalion, 1937, and Dance references a Betty Davis movie that I've never heard of from 1942 called Now Voyager, which sounds like a sci-fi movie, but it's a romance.
It
where
also sounds like an early 2010s indie band.
Yeah, right.
That does.
Oh,
Oh my god! Now Voyager is opening for freelance whales.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
At Death by Audio.
Right now, I'm gonna go see the shits with Now Voyager. Yeah, they're playing.
This is like a romance movie where Betty Davis goes from like geek to chic. And then
Oh wow, we love it. They always do. They never
always
go from
do.
chic to anything else. It's always chic.
no. And then we get the fairy
There's one.
godmother of all makeover montages, Cinderella. So literal magic is employed in creating this beautiful woman out of like a mousy servant. This is Aviv talking again, by the way. This added an important element to the makeover montage, which was music, right? All it takes is a bibbity bobbity boo, and all your beauty dreams can come true. I'm not going to go through every makeover montage between 1950 and
Yeah, there's
Clueless
too
in
many.
1959 and 1995, but because we'll probably explore some in other episodes, save for I want to mention one that jump started the craze in the 1990s, which was Pretty Woman. So the movie's title track plays over the street ragamuffin played by Julia Roberts as she goes on a shopping spree on Rodeo Drive. And this movie moment was so influential that it inspired Touchstone Pictures, which is Disney, to change the name of the film from 3000, which was the name of the script, and the dollar amount that Richard Gere pays Julia Roberts for a week of her company, to Pretty Woman, the name of the song.
Such a horrible
90s
title, by the way. Like
3000.
3000. It's my favorite movie. Like said no one.
That
So-
that
Ever
that
gonna
sound
say.
again. That sounds like a another sci-fi movie.
Another sci-fi movie.
Yeah,
So
really
Yeah.
does. Right.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
3000, the script for 3000 is famous in screenwriting books. It's like broken down in a bunch of famous screenwriting books. And the original ending was like very dark. And
Oh,
once
yeah, I've heard
Touchstone
that.
Pictures got a hold of it, they're like, no, they should end up together. Call it Pretty Woman. But
Mhm.
okay, 90s,
It's the 90s.
consumerism.
Everything's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
consumerism.
Everything's
The
gonna
makeover's
be
back,
okay.
baby.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
shows up in countless films of the 90s and 2000s. But Dance makes an interesting distinction between makeovers in magazines and on reality TV and those in movies. So this is her quote. Unlike the makeover in reality television and in women's magazines where ordinary people are improved through changes in their appearance, the makeover in film presents us with actresses who are essentially disguised through costuming and cosmetic effects as those ordinary people, and not just ordinary, but unattractive, even ugly. And when an actress playing the part of an unattractive woman receives a makeover, it becomes simply a reinstatement of her already recognized glamour and celebrity persona. Because of this, Dance argues the makeover in film ultimately represents a contradictory ideology where it asserts that with a little bit of makeup and the right haircut, anybody can be sexually competitive and climb the social ladder, but the makeover simultaneously reinforces the very strict ideals of physical beauty as embodied by a female movie star. In other words, the makeover is egalitarian and at the same time elitist, presenting unrealistic standards of appearance somehow attainable by anyone.
I'm
Right.
thinking.
They're always still very thin. They're still very
Mhm.
white. They're still checking off these boxes where
Mhm.
it's really easy. Whereas, like, you know, if it was the average person, in order to fit these very narrow beauty ideals, they're going to have to change their weight, their body, their race, their
Mhm.
body. No acne, hell no. Like, there's all these steps. Like, nobody could go from geek to chic, and most people couldn't go from geek to chic as this definition of chic is in 20 minutes. It'd be like 6 months, like electrolysis, like all
Yeah.
these.
Yeah.
It couldn't be a 20-minute thing.
And Dance goes into a lot about plastic surgery and how this is like the inevitable conclusion of what we're putting on television and in movies.
Yeah.
Lane, do me a favor, take off your glasses.
I mean,
put your-
what?
put
But
your
I've always
hair
had this
down.
on. Oh my God, you're so ridiculous. Why? It's not going to do anything.
I never noticed how beautiful
Wow,
your
you're a
eyes
whole,
are,
whole
right?
different person.
And
I know. I mean, whatever. They always there's like 12 minutes of shame whenever they take off their glasses. They're
yeah,
like, what? What are you doing? I feel so stupid right
bump
now.
into something.
Yeah.
Speaking of Carrie Russell again, so I'm doing a little Felicity rewatch currently because there's a new podcast out about Felicity specifically, called Dear Felicity, and then they some of my favorite, like, she doesn't get a makeover at any point, but they have to
Just cut her hair.
instead of, well, yeah, but instead of putting her in glasses, Carrie Russell is so beautiful and undeniably so. They found ways early on in the series to make her seem almost like asexual, putting her in these ginormous sweaters.
Yeah.
Yep. And even she in this podcast talks about how she looks back and is like, wow, my character is so asexual. And I mean, I think that they kind of succeed in like, cause she's like her character, they kind of weave it into the character because she's beautiful and she doesn't know it. And she's always like wearing these sweaters.
Beautiful, but doesn't know it.
Yep. Yeah. She falls into the beautiful but doesn't know it category.
Men love it. That's the ideal. That's the female ideal. That she's made it to 25 and nobody's ever told her she was pretty and she's never received any kind of benefits.
An untapped resource.
Yeah, that they can control and manipulate. That's really what it is.
I teach screenwriting as a day job, as a job. And that's like one of the big no-nos is when someone describes how attractive someone
Beautiful
is.
and doesn't know
And
it.
I'm like,
Yeah.
not even doesn't know it. Just like how hot, like no one is, we don't put ugly people in the
like
movies.
the script.
You don't have
Yeah,
to say that they're ugly or not ugly, hot or not hot. And like, think about it. Do we ever truly believe that Julia Roberts or Brittany Murphy or Betty Davis or Anne Hathaway twice, for that matter, is ugly? Like, no, we are constantly waiting for the moment that they take off the glasses and they put their ponytail down. And
that's very true. But I will say at the same time, I think one of the reasons that Brittany Murphy's character Ty works so well in this is I think maybe this is one of the only or one of very few where like you absolutely can see that because she doesn't fit into Hollywood. Every other person that you just named totally fits into the Hollywood archetype. No alterations needed. She really didn't, both on screen and off. So it really was like taking this alt girl and making her pretty, but not an alt girl in the way that we've seen where it's like, yeah, she just has to take off her glasses or her flattered overalls. Like Brittany Murphy was different than the other Hollywood girls. She was in the best way, but in a way that
it ate at her. Like,
exactly. And it's like, but for this, that's so much of why that worked. And honestly, as we've been talking about it, I realized I think that was my biggest takeaway from that makeover scene was like, there's so much there of like, if only the popular kids could make me normal, could make me this standard of beauty that we're telling young girls is achievable if you just do these three things, when of course it's so unachievable for most people. But those scenes tell you that if the popular girls had you for 20 minutes.
Here's your checklist.
Yeah.
Dance continues. One could argue convincingly that the transformation is the narrative route, that transformation is the narrative route of every story, particularly those circulating in American culture, American literature, and cinema shares an obsession with rags to riches, or a story that transforms social class. Hollywood articulates a narrative of class ascension, both in its fiction films and its real star bodies, like what happened to Brittany Murphy in real life. And Americans never seem to tire of stories about the underdog transformed into a winner somehow, the orphan transformed into a prince, the nobody transformed into a star. But what makes the makeover in film a modern form of the much older narrative trope of transformation is its emphasis on authenticity. The real self is revealed to the world as an improved appearance. In other words, what defines the makeover is its central project to externalize one's inner charm and beauty. The fantasy of the makeover in film then is not becoming someone else, but becoming oneself more fully.
Right. Or like your best self if you weren't so dumpy.
Right.
Yeah. Because it is kind of a backhanded compliment.
And I think that this is where Clueless excels, where other films fail, because it actually rejects this trope. What sets Clueless apart from most of these makeover movies is that Ty eventually rejects being Cher's Frankenstein's monster. To borrow a term from Mean Girls, Cher creates a plastic that she can't control, and then she and Ty both realize that Ty was living a life as Cher's doll and rejecting who she really is. So the infantilized dress, the baby doll dresses, the overalls, this is This is Cher's understanding of Ty, but Ty is like wearing it, right?
Right, like she's her baby doll.
She's her baby doll.
Yeah.
And Cher is like, despite being super confident, not super good at being this like manipulative whatever.
She sees herself as this mentor. Like, hey, I'm going to rescue you from social suicide.
When ultimately she's a virgin who can't drive.
Yeah, ultimately she herself has the most growing to do. Even though she sees herself as this benefactor.
Exactly.
And then she finds that growth, as so many of us have, by sleeping with her stepbrother. That's good.
She got
is he
stuck
still
in
her
the
stepbrother?
dryer.
Is he still her stepbrother?
Ex-stepbrother.
Ex-stepbrother.
That one's
Yeah,
not as
I mean the foundation is weird because you've started out. Yeah, it's
there are more satirical works that also do this. Mean Girls does this, where they kind of reject the plastic mentality. Jawbreaker, where Fern Mayo, they like create a Frankenstein and Fern Mayo that like winds up destroying them. But Clueless is relatively earnest and not super overt with Ty's rejection of Cher's vision of her femininity. So it's kind of easy to overlook this plot point that Ty eventually like goes back to kind of the norm.
She kind of finds this like middle ground stylistically where she doesn't look exactly the way she did when we first meet her, but she does kind of like arrive at this medium place where she could
wearing like more makeup. She's still grungy, but it's more of like a Delia's grungy than it was a like skateboarding shop grungy.
And it's definitely not infantilized anymore. She's not the baby doll.
Yeah, no, she's not, which is good. It kind of hits a good medium where you feel like she just has a little bit more confidence, where she can like take or leave these ideas of beauty. She can like, I don't like that one. That's not for me. Like, what is my version of that? That I think is also really relatable to a lot of like weird girls, because I think so many of us as kids really wanted to be those popular girls just because, I don't know, we didn't want to get bullied, and we wanted to fit in, and we wanted to think we were beautiful, and we wanted other people to think we were worthy, you know? But also, like, that didn't actually really make sense for us. That's not really what we wanted. We wanted acceptance, and we still wanted our sense of style. So I feel like where she lands stylistically is very true to who that person would be.
Yeah, and kind of more true to life in that, like, you don't need to reject wholesale the popular girls out of spite, and you don't need to dress exactly like them or like they want you to dress just because of fealty to them. Like, you can take some makeup tips and still be who you are. Go after the boys you want to go after, even though Cher thinks it's like he's totally gross or whatever, Breckin Meyer's character.
I want to throw in one makeover scene that actually I think does present the best version of that character because she's hiding before, and that is My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Sure.
Where main character does give herself a makeover, and I think because she gives it to herself, it also takes place over a super long period of time. Right. It's not immediate. It's not in 20 minutes or a day. Yes, it's a gradual her coming out and being more engaged in the world and her surroundings, not hiding in herself. And then because she's grown into herself, even in like a late bloomer type of way, because she's
like in her mid 30s.
Yeah, she's like 30. Like her life becomes richer.
No, I think that's a totally good. That's a good pull.
I love her so much, and she's like a wonderful, wonderful person. I could go off about how great she is. Because we're friends now, and she's awesome. So cool. She was at she like saw something I posted, some comedy video I posted. She was like, "This is really funny," and I told her my first book, when How to Be Alone came out. I was like, "I'm gonna be in LA. Like, I'd love to meet you. I don't know." And she was like, "I'll be there," and she was first in line to buy a copy. I shit.
Oh, that's so nice.
Like, I literally have a photo that my friend took of me standing next to her, not looking cool at all, like my mouth open, like, what is happening right now? Like, she said she would do it, and she did. She's a wonderful person. So it's like, and that movie meant a lot to me because it is this like really beautiful story that could only be really told by somebody. Like, she was slept on for so long. I don't know. I have so much Nia Vardalos love that I want to.
It's that authenticity question that we've been talking about, right? Like, you can see
she has it in spades. She's deeply just this wonderful person.
And it's reflected in her self makeover scene in
Mhm.
Big Fat Greek Wedding, right?
Yeah.
Is like the authenticity of like, this doesn't take 10 minutes. This isn't something that you go to the popular girl to do for you. Like you
Right.
have to look within to like change yourself. And also I think that this like rejection of the like, whatever the popular girls have prescribed for you thing is also present in the song, right? It's
Mhm.
like the tongue in cheekness. It kind of reminds me of those like cringy, I think it's like a winking version of those cringy shirts that they sold at Target that said things like too pretty to do homework, you know, like
Yeah.
it.
They
But
also they got like real racist real fast. That whole era of t-shirts, they got racist.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, like
2011.
the mid 2000s graphic tee era.
Yeah.
I remember it well.
Real fast. Yeah.
the song is like acknowledging that and winking at it, right?
Totally,
Like
yeah.
like taking away its power. Even after being laid bare in Clueless, the makeover scene is still used to reinforce ideals of white femininity and to reject or punish masculine women. So, Miss
Totally.
Congeniality, G.I. Jane, the House Bunny, I could go on. But few of these moments have the staying power of Clueless and Supermodel and Amy Heckerling's sometimes misunderstood subversion of the makeover trope. And even women's magazines have come around to almost reckoning with their complicity in makeover culture. In 2022, Cosmo UK published an article, "Can we all agree movie makeover scenes are problematic?" Yes, Cosmo. It's the movies that were the problem all along.
Yeah. Also, that 2022, you're getting to that. You're coming to that realization. 2022, Cosmo UK. All right.
Yeah, Lane, actually, you worked at Cosmopolitan.
I did. Yeah. I came into Cosmo, and my whole goal at Cosmo was to make Cosmo super queer, super body positive, super like, don't shave your legs if you don't want to shave your legs. Like,
How did that go over?
I mean, I won a GLAAD award, and that was really
Right
what
on.
I set out to do. I really wanted to make it like, and because I mean, my whole thing was I was like, I I just figured there were people like I'd written for a lot of magazines and stuff that like you couldn't get everywhere. And I was like, okay, well, if people are going to be reaching for Cosmo, what if, or looking at the website, whatever, what if they open it up and it didn't make them hate themselves?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, I'm very proud that I did that because that didn't exist when I was there. Media did not have that. It did not do that. Like, I started doing articles that were like, 13 ways to get a bikini body. And it was like, every single one was like, put on a bikini. And that was like, now, years later, it's like, people are like, oh, yeah, that's right. Like, it's become more in the lexicon, but like, people weren't talking about that shit then. It was still very much like, get a trainer. Why are you
Mhm.
eating? Like, so I don't know. I'm not going to say it wasn't an uphill battle. It was, whenever you're trying to change something that's like institutionalized, it's going to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's going to be
Yeah.
hard. I mean, look at, if Cosmo UK is only coming to that conclusion in 2022, I mean,
Not
imagine-
looking inward. They're still not looking inward at all. They're like, yes, it's the movie's problems, and we haven't done anything.
It's everybody.
to
It's everybody. And you
perpetuate
have
that.
to, it's like, but that's the whole thing. It's like trying to change anything from the inside is a nice idea. It's kind of where, you do what you can. That's all.
And just like with Clueless and your work at Cosmo, like you have to look at the subversions of the tropes that you are playing with, right? Like Clueless is a movie about a makeover, and then the lesson is like be yourself. And you're working at Cosmo where it's like don't eat ever, and you're like, hey, be gay and hairy.
Yeah.
And like it's like you have to dig. Sometimes you have to dig deep in media to find that stuff, but it exists, and the more that we get to seek it out, the more we get to do it.
Yeah.
I would like Be Gay and Harry just to be our new tagline.
Yes.
That's t-shirts. You can find Be Gay and Harry at our t-shirt shop.
Harry Styles has something to do with it now. He's officially branded.
Yeah.
Actually,
Be gay.
don't actually be Harry. It's more of a Harry Styles branding moment.
Before we wrap up, Lane, can you tell us more about you're putting out a book soon, and where can we find you?
So, my second book, You Will Find Your People: How to Make Meaningful Friendships as an Adult, comes out on paperback April 25th, which I'm really excited about. It's my first hardcover to paperback makeover, if you will.
Hell yeah.
I also wrote an ebook slash audiobook called You're Not the Only One Fucking Up. And it's breaking the endless cycle of dating mistakes. And so you can find all this information and tour dates. And I also have a podcast called I Thought It Was Just Me, where we talk about basically everything where you feel like you're the only one kind of stressing about things. That I honestly, through, as a when we're talking about Cosmo and stuff, Cosmo was the first place that I realized I wasn't the only one who thought certain things. I was like, oh, I'm definitely the weirdo at Cosmo. I'm going to write about this. I don't know. And then having all these women, all genders, be like, oh my God, she thinks like me. And I'm like, how? I'm so weird. I'm so different. But, so that actually was a big part of me realizing that. But yeah, you can find that is on Patreon, and all the information is at lanemore.org. You can find all of the things, and my socials are at Hello Lane Moore. I'm always trying to remember everything.
Thanks so much for joining us. You were awesome. And I will be listening to your podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I have read your first and second book and
Cool.
cannot wait to read the ebook. Even though I am no longer dating, I will still read it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that I'm really proud of about it is that I think so much of it, even when you're with somebody, even when you're partnered, you still sometimes realize you're like kind of doing some things that you can't let go of. That you're like, oh my God, am I still doing this? Even with like a safe, healthy partner, I really am still doing this. And I like interviewed a bunch of people who are like different ages from different backgrounds about like things they looked back and realized that they were doing in their relationships. And I think really more than, a book about dating, I feel like even beyond that, I also just wanted to write about how it can feel like you're the only person who like keeps making the same mistakes in your life. And like, why can't you figure it out? Why can't you just solve this?
Yeah.
And I beat myself up for that all the time. And it was very cathartic to write about and read about all these other women and men and all these different ages and hear them say like, and you can tell from them talking, they're like very smart, very cool. And well, subjectively cool. I think they're cool, but like, you know what I mean? Like they just seem like good people that you would never expect, because I think so many of us have this idea that like, you're the only one who's messing it up. Everybody else has this figured out and you're like left behind. Something's wrong with you.
Everyone got a manual but you.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way all the time. And so it's like really nice when especially I think the reason I use the word cool too is because there is this idea of this like cool girl who like never makes the same mistake twice. And she like takes her lessons and moves on. And like, I'm not her. I want to be her. I feel like nobody can be her, but it's this kind of weird distillation of this, like, I don't know. It's some weird offshoot of feminism that's like, listen, girl.
I feel like we all try to be that to each other, especially
Yes.
as when people identifying as women. Like, because I've noticed that even people who've been together for like long periods of time, like friends that you have that you used to just like spill all the relationship tea to, you just stop doing that after a while. Like if like the longer you're with your partner, you just want to like show to the world that you are that cool girl and you don't talk about the real shit anymore with
Right.
those
Because
closest
you
to you.
solved it. You don't want to make any more
Mhm.
mistakes anymore. And we have this
Yep.
idea that, like, if you're partnered, if you have friends now or whatever, there's no more work to do. You solved it. You
Yeah.
nailed it. I think
Yeah,
that's so much.
it does not end. Yeah.
No, I think
Yeah.
that's so much of the work I do on myself and the work that I do in art and things like, and that's why I write about it so much, because it's something that is eternal for me. And I don't ever feel like I've completely solved all of it. And there's like a shame in that, but there's also a freedom in that when I talk about it with other people, because I'm kind of that self-acceptance and kind of expanding that self-acceptance outwards and being like, hey, I'm just gonna say it. I have not perfected whatever all of this is. And then it invites other people to be like, oh, thank God, me neither.
Mhm.
It's just
It's
the
wonderful.
first person that can break the surface tension of, none of us is okay.
those are my favorite people in life.
Yeah.
That's always what I wanted to do as a kid. I didn't understand why nobody talked about anything, why nobody wanted to talk about anything real. I always wanted to talk about it. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like in the biopic of my life, it's like I really was that kid who was like, we're not all gonna say the thing that's really happening, but I really want to. And it's like grows up to be the person who says the thing that people don't want to say. And then everyone's like, yeah. So it's very important to me. I think we need as many of those people as possible.
I try to collect those people in my life.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. We are edited by Katie Yonner. Production coordinator is Kyle Bosch. Associate producer, Lee Haiku. Social media producer, Dale Stampley. Executive produced by Tommy West. Original music by Taylor Barefoot. We are a Pro podcast. InSync is a production of Gotham West Studios. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere at The InSync Pod. We'll see you next time.
When the kids in America, when the kids